particularly in the Caribbean region, when we're looking at the fact that we're dealing with very small populations, and really the number of people applying for immigrant visas from the Eastern Caribbean, for example, is really a drop in the bucket. But yet still, our countries have found ourselves there. In the case of the Caribbean community, the countries that were not on that list included the likes of Suriname, Guyana, and Trinidad and Tobago. And we I've seen in the past, in fact, significant outward migration, in particular from Guyana, over the past couple of decades, since about the 1970s. And a number of those immigrants were heading to the United States. And so there's a very large proportion of Guyanese who find their diaspora in the United States of America. But of course, the question is, why were they in particular omitted from this particular list? And one has to wonder, well, what's common between those three countries that would perhaps, get them not to be placed on such a list? And that is oil. And they are all oil and gas producers. Guyana, of course, quite recently, as we've seen, experiencing significant booms as a result of oil and gas. They have become one of the top producers. When I say top, within the top 25 countries in the world, they are now up there in that category, thanks to the investments that have been made of late, including many U.S. companies, Chevron, for example, playing a very important role there, Exxon as well. And so one is seeing a very interesting state of play when it comes to this entire matter. A country like Barbados, for example, even the Bahamas, Antigua and Barbuda, these countries, I believe, probably still enjoy comparatively high, very high GDP per capita figures. At one point in time, of course, we were hearing that Barbados was entering a developed world status in terms of its socioeconomic development, and so of course you've seen that Barbados is being put on that list as well. So very instructive with how this may have actually been somehow constructed, and what some of the considerations may have been to be able to determine that the United States seems to, at this point in time, place on ice immigrants coming from those particular countries. We did see floating around not too long ago a curious list that had been put out by the Trump administration, suggesting that there were certain countries which were the immigrants from those countries were more likely to be utilizing welfare programs within the United States. They were more likely to be benefiting from things like Medicaid and the various welfare type programs, Social Security, those types of programs in the United States of America, and almost suggesting, therefore, that those countries are effectively, or citizens coming from those countries are burdens to the U.S. System, and so it quite possibly, and I haven't gone back to look at that list and to see whether there is some correlation between that list which was sent out there and this recent action by the U.S. authorities in this regard. Now, I believe we do have a clip as well from Mr. Saunders. Ronald Saunders is Antigua and Barbuda's representative over in Washington, D.C. Of course, very well-respected individual and a major commentator on Caribbean affairs. And he has spoken to the matter yesterday, I believe, in this following release, which we can share with you at this time.
It has been brought to my attention that media outlets, including Fox News and CVM News in the United States, are reporting that the United States Department of State is contemplating a suspension of visa processing for applicants from approximately 75 countries, including 12 member states of the Caribbean community. Antigua and Barbuda has been included in lists currently circulating in this regard. Now, upon becoming aware of these reports, I made immediate inquiries with the United States Department of State. As of this moment, no formal announcement has been made and no official communication has been issued to the embassies of the 75 countries that are reportedly affected. Incidentally, no official communication has been sent to the Barbados Embassy in Bridgetown, which is accredited to Antigua and Barbuda. I was advised by senior officials of the Department of State that this matter arises from a new requirement under direction of the White House. However, contrary to some media reports, the measure under consideration does not apply to all visa categories. It relates only to applications for immigrant visas, commonly referred to as green cards, which are subject to a temporary pause of up to 60 days while vetting and screening procedures are reviewed. That is what I was told by senior officials of the State Department. I wish to emphasize that at this stage, no written notification has been provided to embassies, and the information available to me is based on direct conversations with senior officials rather than on any formal directive. It is also important to clarify that applications for immigration to the United States are matters exclusively between the individual applicant and the government of the United States. The country of nationality or origin, such as Antigua and Barbuda, has no legal or administrative role in decisions relating to the grant or refusal of immigrant status. In the meantime, the government of Antigua and Barbuda continues its representations to the relevant United States authorities to secure the removal of Antigua and Barbuda from the list of countries subject to partial visa restrictions, including the requirement for certain visa applicants to post a bond. These efforts remain ongoing and active. Thank you very much.
Right, of course, that again, Ronald Sanders of Antigua and Barbuda. And it is, of course, another matter that is being looked at by OECS leaders who, in fact, met in sort of an emergency meeting yesterday right here in St. Lucia, being hosted by St. Lucia's Prime Minister. And, of course, we've been seeing over the past couple of months and weeks, lots of issues related to that of the CIP program and the U.S. Seemingly trying to take aim at that, and efforts, of course, at trying to collaborate more, the establishment of a regulatory authority. There have been in some quarters, of course, individuals trying to suggest that the placement of these countries on this list has something to do with CIP. And obviously, again, if you look at the list, it clearly has nothing to do with CIP at all, because you're dealing with 75 countries, many of which, the vast majority of which have no CIP programs. Beyond that, if you look at even within the context of the Caribbean community, Barbados doesn't have a CIP, nor does St. Vincent and the Grenadines, nor does Jamaica, nor does the Bahamas, and so clearly that correlation is false, um, and so we are, of course, looking at a policy direction being taken by the United States of America that seems to be driven a lot more by the desires, of course, of President Trump in regard to the matter of immigration, and seemingly trying to clamp down on immigration coming from particular countries which are being deemed to be um, third world, and are being deemed to be countries from which he is not keen to have immigration from. Now, we've seen discriminatory immigration policies in the world before. If you look at the whole history of immigration to the countries of the Americas, we've seen a lot of immigration policy being based on race. In fact, many countries in Latin America um, engaged in a process of trying to make their populations more European over the years. And so you have situations like in Argentina, for example. In Argentina, during the Spanish period, you still had a relatively large proportion of indigenous as well as African populations. In fact, at one point in time, the city of Buenos Aires, which of course now is a major city of well over 12 million people, the capital of Argentina, they, I think maybe in the 1790s or thereabouts, you found that about 30%, 1 in 3 inhabitants in Buenos Aires was of African descent. And if you probably shift the picture to 1930, or not even so far, let's say 1790 to say 1890, 100 years later, it would have been very, very different. And today, less than 1% of the population of Buenos Aires is of African descent. And that is because of a very deliberate policy of trying to attract Europeans to Buenos Aires. In particular, you saw uh, efforts to attract people from Italy and Germany, but very, very much from Italy during the 1860s, the 19th century. And so, in addition to that, you also saw attempts at eliminating or reducing the population, the African populations as well. And that was done by deliberate policies of discrimination. It was through using more Africans in pointless wars, for example, as with wars with neighboring Uruguay. You saw that type of activity happening. And so when you look at Latin America right now, in Brazil, for example, you see that very much as well. These are largely recent waves of immigration from Europe during the 19th and 20th centuries, deliberately to try to change the population composition in those countries. And very similarly, we've had other actions in the case of the United States in the past in a similar way. So the idea of discriminatory immigration policy is nothing new. And of course, one would think that in the 21st century, this is not what, countries, developed world countries, would be engaging in, but it is very self-evident from those types of policies that we are seeing these types of actions occurring. Not in the whole. I mean, because we can also say that there are a few European countries where there have been bans placed, but in those instances, those countries are majority Muslim. And I speak of Bosnia, which finds itself within the 75, the group of 75, as well as Albania. Again, both Balkan countries, both with large majority Muslim populations. So again, you can see where a lot of the what is likely driving the determinations in terms of some of these decisions in respect of these countries. Is it also being considered there in the case of the Caribbean? That countries that have very high majority Black populations are the ones that have been effectively listed. Is that also perhaps one of the considerations that is at play, given the fact that in the case of Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, Suriname, you've got a lower overall majority Black population there because of other races being present? Well, who knows? And again, it'd be interesting to do that kind of analysis to look at some of these considerations as to how this list was actually developed. But certainly, it represents a significantly large proportion of the world population, nearly 40% of the world's countries being listed in the mix. And of course, certainly, a person who wants to emigrate from Italy is not going to have any issue in doing so, or the United Kingdom, or Spain and Portugal. So again, this type of discrimination in the process certainly raises very, very, very apparent and clear questions as to the motivations regarding such a policy move. Well, we will, of course, take our weather news at this time. And, of course, that's our dish of the day.
This has been The Daily Dish. Island style. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, we'll have to make the right choice. Island style. We got the time that will make you happy. Island style. Oh yeah. We make your dream come alive in Island style. We have cats and princess, mixes and grow. Everything you need is on the outside. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style car. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, quality rice, service rice. It's all at Island Style. Visit us at our showrooms in Belarus and Rodney Bay on the John Compton Highway, Cass Street, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library Viewport Highway. Or call us on 450-452 or 453 Tile. Island Style, tile and bath. When you think tile, think Island Style. This is Radio Caribbean International. It's now time for the weather news.
And that's all, of course, on the 1.4. It's now time for your weather report as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Talent Bar. The forecast for St. Lucia Valley for the next 24 hours. The winds will be blowing from the east in near 22 miles per hour or 35 kilometers per hour. The weather fair to partly cloudy skies with a chance of brief showers. advisory which reads small camp operators and sea beavers are advised to exercise caution due to brisk winds and above normal seas. The forecast for the lesser entities: partly cloudy skies becoming cloudy at times with brief scattered showers over the southern Windward Islands. Elsewhere, fair to partly cloudy with a few showers. And the weather summary: the Atlantic high pressure system will maintain moderate to brisk easterly winds above normal seas across the region during the next couple of days. Weak unstable conditions associated with a mid-level trough will cause periods of cloudiness with some scattered showers over the southern lesser Antilles. Meanwhile, patches of low-level clouds drifting along the wind flow will produce a few showers over the remainder of the region during the forecast period. And this has been your weather forecast as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Talent Back.
This has been RCI's Weather News. For more information, call the Weather Hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101 number 1.
Island style, yeah. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. We'll have to make the right choice. Island style. Whoa. We got the time that will make you happy. Island style. Oh yeah. We make your dream come alive. In Island style.
We have times and things, sets, mixes and ground. Everything you need is on the outside. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style Car.
We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. Quality, price, service, choice. It's all at Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Bellarosa, Rodney Bay, on the John Compton Highway, Cass Street, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library Viewport Highway. Or call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style, Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
And welcome back to the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. And of course, the number to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, it is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. And we also have our WhatsApp number that you can call into. It is 284-6001. Again, 284-6001. And again, we are looking at very topical matter as the world continues to look on with interest at something that perhaps there is very little control over by many countries in the world right now. And of course, I know there is that seeming sense of helplessness and perhaps being felt by both populations as well as by the leaders of countries in some of the moves that are being taken right now by the Trump administration. And one can say it perhaps even at the level of the United States of America itself. Many are asking, well, how is it that in a great democracy like the United States, with all its systems and rules and checks and balances, and are we seeing some of these actions taking place? And it is certainly a very interesting message that one must look at. You're hearing, of course, that there are political implications regarding the level of support that is being seen right now by for Mr. Trump. Many are saying, well, we just have to wait and hold on until November and the midterms, and hopefully this will all be put back in check through a non-Republican held Congress. We'll have to, I mean, it's a pretty long way still off from November. And with the actions that are being taken, it'll be very interesting to see how it all pans out. Even in the case of Europe, and again, very many long-standing friends of the United States Many of them are seemingly very perplexed about some of the stances and positions and pronouncements being made by U.S. authorities, and actions, of course, being taken by U.S. authorities right about now. So, and of course, one would think that if their friends alone can't influence them, then how can we? Let's see how that goes in the case of this call. We're going to take a call in at this time. Good afternoon. Welcome to the lunchroom, and what's on your plate today?
Mr. George,
How are you doing, caller?
how are you?
Not bad at all. How are you doing?
Okay, I get your drift. So the expedient thing to do is to wait and see. That's the philosophy.
I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying. But do we have any control at this point?
Well, no,
Oh.
you know, maybe inadvertently you saying it. That's what people like us. who
Well,
have no influence.
Well, wait and see, but also try to prepare. Try to see what we can.
Well,
you know.
you mean hope for the best, but expect the worst.
There you go. There you go.
Huh?
Yes. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Boy. You know, but you know, aren't we limited in? I mean, what we could do that could, you know, sustain.
Very limited.
Yeah, our standard, the standard of living we have come to be, you know, accustomed to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Eh?
Yes. 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 And a lot of our standard of living is tied to the United States. Let's not forget.
Absolutely.
Let's not forget that. I mean, you know, this whole idea of barrels being sent down, you know, a lot of people are, you know, waiting for the.
You look at it, you could get vexed, you could grind, you could do what you want. It's just like it's a wait and see, you know, and, you know, like prepare as much as you can, you know. But that means that is life reduced to a one day at a time sort of thing?
No, I think that we do have to plan. We have to look at the big picture. If we lose sight of the big picture, then that's even worse. Yeah, I mean, yes, we have to be able to. It's fluid in that it's changing so much, and people can say that when situations are moving so very quickly, it's hard to plan.
I mean,
the targets are moving.
The man in charge of
Yeah.
Trump is so, you know, unpredictable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, predictable, very predictable, but in terms of the next move,
right?
You know, predictable in a sense that, you know, it's not going to be to your advantage. I feel that much we could comfort ourselves on knowing, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, but
he's a wild card
as to what exactly it's going to be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, because that one just jump out of the bag, you know, that arrangement for refugees and so on, and even the attack on the abduction of Maduro, you know.
You said it jumped out of the bag, as in you didn't see it coming?
That they would actually go and seize him?
You didn't think so?
Well, I think they would have probably declare war.
Oh, you thought that there was going to be a full-blown attack in terms of boots on the ground, and but you see the approach that he has taken.
But what he did there, I mean, that's really.
It's far more calculating, caller.
It's nothing new. Because remember they went and took Noriega.
Right, but then for him, he remember the whole issue that he's trying to even avoid now is whether he actually had congressional authority. Now, for him to go to war with Venezuela, he would have had to certainly, I mean, in terms of a full-scale military invasion, he would have no choice but to, you know, try to get congressional approval.
So you have some smart fellas advising him, and Rubio. And
oh, well, cunning for sure. Cunning, smart, yeah, whatever word you want to use. But
man have the grandeur ideas of one day being
the
leader of Cuba, you know, returning in triumph.
Well, you know that, as they say, if you want to go after the snake, the best thing to do is to cut off the head right away, and that's exactly what they've managed to very smartly achieve,
and
at least for the
Cuban
time being.
exile and these anti-communist and Cubans, they see him as the person to go back in triumph and facilitate the repatriation or whatever. Marco Rubio is a very influential man in what's going on.
Oh, certainly.
Yeah.
And he's got his.
So, I don't know. Like you say, you wait and see, but prepare the best you can. You know, people talk a lot about food security and so on.
And if you put yourself in Trump's supporters' shoes right now, he must be feeling like they're on top of the moon. You know, they managed to get Maduro. Assad is no longer around in Syria. You're seeing what is going on in terms of protests in Iran right now. You know, the belief that perhaps, you never know, there might be a toppling of the Iranian regime there. You're seeing his actions. He's taking actions in Yemen. He's taking action in Nigeria against.
Better be careful what they're doing. You know.
What's that?
They better be careful what they're doing. You know.
Who's that?
The Iranians.
Ah.
Because it's all well and good to say, all right, let's get rid of the mullahs, the ayatollahs, and the theocracy and institute democracy. But so did the Libyans and the Iraqis, you know, and they have become failed states. Essentially.
Well, I'm not sure that Iraq is a failed state. Some people might say that Iraq has done relatively well over the past couple of years.
Iraq is all right now?
They've made significant strides. It's not to say that it's a perfect state, but it's not. Iraq is not a Libya. It's not an Afghanistan. You know, so I think people are actually investing in Iraq. There's a lot of interest.
And Afghanistan.
Well, Afghanistan, much less so at the moment.
It's not Somalia. It's not Sudan.
Well, yeah. So I'm not sure. I mean, it's all somewhat relative. But I take your point, though, that if there is in fact going to be a power vacuum in Iran, what is that going to mean?
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
is it going to end up in a civil war type situation? Is it?
Yeah, because you want to kill the whole thing
Yeah.
of theocracy, you know, and I don't know how.
And you know, we sometimes look at some of these countries, we hear about them, but you know, the average Iranian might be telling you, well, you know, I have a pretty good quality of life. You know, there are a lot of things that Iranians may be enjoying that we may not even be enjoying in Saint Lucia. But I mean,
yeah, but one last thing, Alex. You know, the most self-sufficient country globally in food.
Well, I heard they were pushing Guyana as being this self-sufficient country recently.
Right, yeah.
I don't know where that, you know, the metrics came from precisely
no,
to.
You know, they use the different groups of food that necessary for a balance, you know.
Right.
For balanced nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like meat, fish, grain, fruits.
Yeah.
You know, fats, whatever.
But Guyana is a fairly.
And Guyana.
It's from a land perspective, Guyana has one of the lowest densities, population densities in the world. It has vast amount of agricultural land. So I don't know. It's
the oil, you know, and
plus, yes, yeah.
So I mean, what's Guyana stand in that consider thing? That thing with Maduro, with Venezuela. Is that any comfort to them?
I think to some degree, of course, they would be because remember there is this whole push towards the Essequibo. Whether Maduro was serious about it or not, he did use it as a significant political national platform.
So they killed the Americans move there, kill that situation for them.
Well, I would think that the Guyanese would be a lot more comfortable about the idea of Maduro not being there. And it's not just the Guyanese, I should point out, because when you look at, I think there have been some polls that have been done looking at popular sentiment across South America, South and Central America, and it would appear that a lot of people across South and Central America were not enamored in any way by Maduro, and are kind of happy that he's no longer around. They may not have been satisfied by the way it was done by the United States. That's a different matter. But in a way, some of them are somewhat relieved that he and actually want to see some level of regime change. But I'm just talking about how people see it, and I mean, this might not be.
No, you're correct. A lot of people, they were, in as much as they don't support what Trump did, they were not enamored by, like you say, Maduro. You know?
Yeah, and I think that probably is why, maybe even the outcry, the expectation of the extent of outcry on this matter seems to be muted. It seems to be it's going to be a louder cry of
but you have the populist governments like Argentina and them coming out boldface and say they love it.
Well, yes. Argentina would be in that position, I would imagine so. Especially with their leader,
But one last thing, the oil situation there. Because remember, a lot of the projects being done through oil arrangements and things with the Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the whole thrust to do, President Trump keeps saying they have to keep the Western Hemisphere free of the Chinese and the Russians and them.
Mm-hmm.
So and the level to which China has invested in Guyana, huh?
Yes.
So how does that play out?
I don't know necessarily that the Americans will be able to keep the Chinese out.
Yeah.
If you know the Chinese, they've probably made deals on both sides, whether the opposition parties in Venezuela as well as with the socialist parties.
But if
So-
America, if all America gunboated ships and
Mhm.
down in they could blockade the same things they do with the Russians in Cuba. The Chinese, in fact, they've been planning to do that even from in Panama, and that's another place I feel Trump ain't talk about it yet, but
Yes, well, he has. Remember, he has spoken about the
that's one of
Panama
the things he
Canal.
wants to talk about.
He has spoken about it. Yes.
So, he absolutely wants to stop.
Yeah, and we have
the
seen him.
movement of the Chinese in the Western Hemisphere.
We have seen him take action towards Chinese shipping, Chinese presence in Panama and other parts of the world. So he has. Not saying that he hasn't tried to keep them out, but what I'm also saying too is that I would not be too surprised if even the U.S. coming into Venezuela may not even necessarily mean that the Chinese would not be players in there at all. They may still. In fact, even in Guyana, you have U.S. interests and Chinese interests, and I think in some instances they even work in partnership. So
in so much as the Guyanese, are comforted by the fact that the Venezuelans get the Venezuelans off their back for the time being, but they must be worried about a possible undermining of the long-term development plans, which the Chinese feature very greatly. Huh?
But I don't think the Chinese in any way are going to be pulling out of Guyana. Even if, like I said, there are lots of areas where you're seeing, the Chinese are very happy to have the Americans come in because they might see them as, more markets to work with, more persons to trade with. It's I don't know if it's that straightforward, Colin. And especially we've seen the duplicity in terms of American foreign policy with respect to China. And as much as they're concerned about the rise of China,
Man,
they still need China, and China still needs them.
global youth politics is really something else,
Yeah, it is very complex,
Really complicated. Man.
and so it's not a black and white situation.
Not a black
I
and white,
I think we will.
Anyway, my brother.
Okay.
Thanks for the
Thanks
time
very
and
much for that.
discussion.
Definitely.
Okay.
Take care. Have a good one. And of course, we will have to continue to see how it certainly pans out. The Chinese are looking at the possibility, and no doubt, of pretty much the same thing that the United States is looking at as well. Can their companies benefit from investment? Can their companies can they gain access to greater resources? A lot of that is certainly going to be at play. And I think definitely Venezuela is going to be that that country that's going to have a lot of interest because of the long term direction that they're heading towards. But at the same time, the Chinese are trying very, very hard to pivot. And they are now the world leaders in renewable energy. They're the ones who are pushing, who are the leaders in electric vehicle production. They're the leaders in solar and wind. And so they really are trying very hard as much as they can, because they know the other reality of them, just like as we should realize as well, is that we don't really have, well, they have some oil in China, but they don't have enough to be able to depend on in the long term, right? And so they've got to make that pivot. And so there's certainly lessons that we should be embracing from countries like China and others, Japan, for example, and in terms of how we've got to approach the world and how we have to see ourselves making certain shifts. So, yes, the other thing, of course, the partnerships, and can we continue to be so reliant on the principal hegemonic power of the Western Hemisphere, or can we, in fact, in some way, broaden that horizon for ourselves in terms of global partnership? But we will end it here today at the Lunchroom, and we do hope that you can join us again tomorrow, Friday, for another program of the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. Have a good one.